Some men don't even leave you. They bury you alive and say it's destiny. Thomas Whitmore wasn't the type of man to stand and fight for the woman he had sworn to defend. When the rattlesnake bit Sarah in the Mojave sun, its venom already coursing toward her heart, she believed her husband would fight the desert to save her life. Instead, he stole what was left of it. She sensed his hand slide into her apron, removing the silver locket her mother had presented to her on her 16th birthday. He pocketed it without comment, grabbed their final canteen of water, seized the little pouch of coins, and disappeared into the sunset. His bootsteps crunched over the scarlet dust, slow and deliberate, fading until the desert consumed him. Out there, people say the Mojave doesn't kill you, it takes something of you for itself. The rustle Thomas was making as he left was worse than the rattle of the snake. Now she was left with only the fire in her leg, the sensation of sand in her mouth, and the fact that no one was coming. Unless the good Lord chose to send someone. The day had begun like any other. Wagon wheels creaking, sun rising rapidly, heat bearing down like a physical force. The axle broke before noon, splintering like brittle bone. Thomas cursed at the wheel and Sarah stepped into the shallow shade of a Joshua tree. That's when the rattler bit. 2 swift fangs, quicker than a blink. The calico old-timers used to say, "The desert does not kill you fast. It prefers to make you suffer first." Now she knew. She had perhaps an hour before the poison took her, and the man she had trusted was already a dot on the horizon. Her lips were splitting, her pulse roaring in her head, and the sun in the sky seemed to bend down just to see her incinerate. Then the noise. Hoofs, distant at first, too fleeting to believe, but getting louder, more consistent, until a dark shape dropped across her cheek. She opened her eyes. A rider on horseback, shoulders hunched under a dust-splattered shirt, hat low, eyes surveying the desert as if it were his. His name was Jack Rohr, but she wouldn't learn that yet. Out here, the importance of a name took second place to the decisions a man made when death was near enough to taste. Jack swung down from the horse with the relaxed ease of a man who'd spent his life there. He didn't bother with questions. Just spotted the bite, the swelling creeping over her knee, and moved. Most guys freeze when they spot a rattler bite. Jack didn't. He pulled out a long blade, slit 2 clean incisions over the bites, lowered his head and started sucking out the venom. Bitter as sin, but he persisted, spit, draw, spit again. The old methods weren't sure things, but out here in the desert you worked with what you had. Sarah floated between awareness and blackness. Glimpses of blue sky, the scent of horse sweat and leather. Drops of cool water kissed her lips, the final one from his canteen. His voice a low, even whisper, coaxing her to cling. She hardly sensed herself being picked up into his arms. Then onto the horse, her own weight immaterial to him. The ride was hazy heat, motion, hoofbeats slamming the ground. Jack never glanced back. Out there, you didn't give death a second chance. His cabin was modest, timber walls weathered by the wind, a porch that creaked beneath your boots, and a perpetual smell of coffee on the fire. For 2 days she battled the fever, fading in and out like a ship in a tempest. Jack tended her leg, changed the bandages, kept her hydrated to keep her in the fight. But in the desert, trouble never travels alone. And Jack knew the quiet wouldn't last. By the 3rd morning, the desert had gone too quiet, the kind of stillness that makes the back of your neck itch. Jack was out chopping wood when he heard it. Faint at first, like a heartbeat buried in the dust. Hoofbeats. Fast. A figure appeared on the trail. Tall, lean, walking alone with a swagger that didn't belong to a friend. Thomas Whitmore. Jack didn't need an introduction. The man's shifting eyes and the way his hand hovered near his belt told him everything. Thomas stopped 10 paces from the porch. "I'm here for my wife," he said, his voice low, hiding venom in its shadow. Jack left the porch, his voice firm as rock. "She's not yours to take."
No shouting. No threats.
Just the cadence of a man who'd already made up his mind. Thomas charged. It wasn't clean, West fights never are. Boots kicked up dust. Fists broke bone. The 2 men crashed to the ground. Thomas swung wildly, but Jack fought like a man who had gotten himself into trouble and learned how to finish it. A strong push sent Thomas crashing into the dirt, gasping for breath. "This ain't over," Thomas snarled, retreating down the trail. His gaze vowed that he'd be back, and next time not by himself. Jack waited until the man was no more than a glow on the horizon, then walked back towards the cabin. Sarah was in the doorway, pale and upright. She didn't need to hear any more. Trouble had just vowed to come back. For 2 days, the desert remained quiet. Sarah walked a little outside, her leg tender but supporting her. Then there was the sound again, hoofbeats. But only one this time. A dust cloud formed in the distance. Jack saw a buggy coming from the barn. It rumbled up and stopped directly in front of the cabin. Down first jumped Sheriff Miller, wide, sunburned, with the squint of a man who'd spent years under the sun. Thomas followed him down, dressed in a clean shirt and a smug smile, not a mark upon him from their brawl. Sarah stood stock still on the porch, her face losing color. "Sheriff, that's my wife," Thomas declared suavely, as if he'd practiced it in front of the mirror. The sheriff's gaze shifted back and forth between them. "Jack, Sarah, I was informed she was missing. Now here she is on your porch." Sarah held to the railing but replied firmly. She was truthful regarding the rattlesnake, being abandoned to die, Jack rescuing her. She stated it all as a woman who'd had enough of lying. Thomas snorted, short and cold. "She's delirious, Sheriff. This man's been filling her head." Jack did not shift, did not reach for the Colt on his hip, only spoke as clear as day. "She's not going with you." The air grew thick. Sheriff Miller shifted his weight, considering the tales. Out here, the law bent whichever direction the wind blew, and the wind held its breath. Finally, the sheriff did speak, slowly and firmly. "Whitmore, you're not taking her. Not today. Not any day." Thomas's face paled. The sheriff's voice turned harder. "And you and I are going to have a real talk about false reports. And maybe attempted murder." He indicated the buggy. Thomas grumbled but complied, boots crunching on the ground as he swung aboard. The buggy rattled off into a cloud of dust, removing the threat. Sarah breathed out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Before her knees had a chance to buckle, Jack was beside her. He said nothing, just stood there until her breathing steadied. Weeks went by, and the desert was no longer cruel. They worked side by side, repairing fences, planting the old garden, having quiet dinners on the porch. Jack had lived in silence for years, but now the quiet was warm. And Sarah, left for dead under the blistering sun, started to believe in something she thought she'd lost forever: the concept of home. One night, with the sky ablaze and the first stars emerging, Sarah gazed at Jack. "You saved my life," she whispered. Jack shook his head. "No, you saved your own. I just gave you the opportunity. Out here, opportunities are scarce. That's why they're important. Perhaps that's the way of the West. It's abundant in second chances, but only for those who'll take them. The question is, would you? If this tale resonated, mount up for the next ride, because out here, the West still has a lot of stories left to tell."